Good day and welcome back to another DBZ Dokkan Battle video. In this video we are going to take on the Planet Namek Saga category mission for the Epic Collection of Battles. So with this team build, we obviously are looking at taking it pretty slow. We've got Nail, who's going to be a good source of damage against Frieza, but he's not really the highest DPS unit. We've got the Tech Piccolo at 55%, so he's also not necessarily the highest damage unit. We do have the Planet Namek Goku. He is pretty useful, pretty good unit, but obviously we need him to transform in the final stages of the Frieza battle so that we have some control. We have the free-to-play Krillin Exchange into Vegeta unit, who's reliable, but I wouldn't say is necessarily the greatest. He's going to get his Easy A at some point, and that's probably going to make him much better for this stage. We've got a friend Vegeta turn into Goku unit. There's two concerns there. One, we're operating under one of the leads is 130% lead. And then two, obviously Vegeta is extreme type until he turns into Goku. So we essentially have to plan to get the revive so that we can turn him into Goku. Once he turns into Goku, we'll have increased damage reduction and increased crit chance against Frieza in the final stages, which is obviously very good. You could technically use the revive the whole way through, but I mean, I wouldn't do that. You can, there's nothing wrong with it, but I just wouldn't do that. I think it'll take longer to set up rather than just kind of trying to barrel them down. And then we have two Ginyu Force units. So the two Ginyu Force units obviously again highlight extreme units. Extreme units are not great in this stage because remember they do reduce damage. So obviously that's not entirely the best situation. That being said, they do perfectly fine. Raccoon and Jace are great defensively, and they really help shore up our second line, especially Raccoon, very solid, obviously, especially when he activates that guard, and then Jace with the ability to see super attacks and also the buffs he gives the rest of the rotation, very good. So we took out Kui there. Not going to necessarily go through each boss's abilities or anything like that. We've done that before in a video. But essentially, yeah, we've got Kui there. He was not too bad, nothing too crazy. And then we've got the Vegeta and Goku LR. So, like I said, the problem here is obviously you can notice there are three extreme type units, which is, not necessarily an immense problem, but it is just something that's going to slow us down. When you've got extreme type units in the stage, they take normal damage, but they do reduced damage to the enemy. So having three of them is really kind of weighting our team in the wrong direction. And then like I said before, units like Nail are great because Nail's very strong. He gains a lot of buffs against Frieza, and he does automatic crits against Frieza, which means he's going to be great in that last stage. But up until then, he just, as you can see, doesn't do a lot of damage. He's doing like 1 million, 1 million, 1.3 million. He's just not doing a lot. Then we've got obviously the Krillin unit. Doesn't really hit hard at all. Just doesn't hit hard. Obviously, he hasn't got his Easy A, he hasn't got those extra little stats, he hasn't got that change to his passive, he hasn't got those changes to his super attack. So it's not a slight against Krillin. Free-to-play units, especially before they Easy A nowadays, are not necessarily meant to be taking on what is somewhat difficult content. But yeah, obviously trying to use Krillin as an option, trying to just make the team a bit more accessible to people. If you are doing this Planet Namek Saga challenge, don't be afraid to put in extreme units. It might take a while to complete the event, but on the bright side, at least you will complete the event. I think people too many times get too caught up in the whole, trying to finish everything super duper fast, that sometimes their team builds orient this way. This is a viable one with multiple free-to-play characters. I mean, we've got 3 of them in here, so you do have solid options. If you have Piccolo, obviously It does help out quite a bit because Piccolo is a Planet Namek Saga category support, but of course Piccolo is not necessarily a unit everyone's going to have, and similarly with Nail. So if you don't have Nail and you don't have Piccolo, things could be a little bit rough for you because obviously the two work in duo. The free-to-play AGL Piccolo, it's not necessarily the greatest unit. He doesn't really stack up as well as he used to, and he can get really slapped around, like quite a bit. So I wouldn't suggest bringing him, but he is at least an option to replace the Piccolo if you don't have him. But I don't know what's going to replace Nail. If you don't have Nail, but you do have something like LR Super Saiyan Goku, then you at least have an option. LR Super Saiyan Goku is at least viable. He's obviously, got the automatic crit, so he'll generate a large amount of output as well offensively. So that is still a viable option, but you're going to need some kind of damage dealer. Nail or LR Super Saiyan Goku if you're running a team like this, because you're relying so heavily on those two units to do damage. That's realistically why. Of course, that being said, I think overall the team is pretty viable. I think the event is possible. Obviously, there are still 2 free-to-play EZAs that are coming out. We've got the free-to-play EZA for the Int Krillin that I am actually currently using. And then we've also got a free-to-play EZA for the physical Goku as well. Both are Planet Namek Saga. I believe both will assist people greatly with this stage. I think Goku will gain some kind of automated crits or something against Frieza type units or something like that. And I believe Krillin's kit is good for the stage. I just think he just needs that boost to his passive and his stats, and then he'll be doing more than fine. Plus his exchange helps you recover health, so that's obviously quite helpful as well. So like I was saying, there are some options that will be coming out that might assist players a bit more than this team here, and might help to plug in a couple more gaps. The real issue are Planet Namek Saga leads. So currently there are only 3 leads in the game. You have the Super Saiyan Goku, you have the Tech Piccolo, who's a 130% lead. Oh, sorry, there's 4 leads in the game. You have the Tech Piccolo, who's a 130% lead. You have the AGL Frieza, who is obviously a 170-150 lead. And then you have the 130 lead of the Vegeta and Goku unit. So you've got 4 leads, which is decent. Your issue is one of 2 things. Well, the sub leads of Goku and of Vegeta is not necessarily the greatest. So they're only 130% and they are 100% in type. Doesn't give you a lot of maneuverability. Similarly with Goku. Goku is a Planet Namek Saga lead, which is great, but Goku himself, running 2 of them, if you don't get that transformation and the timing and everything, you can kind of suffer a little bit with that, because he won't have his guard, he won't stack his defense to a high enough height, and freezes in a AGL state later on. So realistically, that is a problem if you don't time those properly. If you do though, running double Goku is a super viable option, especially if they have some dupes in them. They'll do plenty of damage. They'll be great tanks, and they'll really help out your team. If you don't have Nail or Legendary Super Saiyan Goku, I highly suggest that you go for the strategy of running double Gokus, or you make sure you get the revive on the Int Goku. If you get the revive on the Int Vegeta into Goku, then you're perfectly fine. You're going to have no problems. You're going to be good to go. If you don't get the revive at the right time, then you're going to suffer. And by suffer, I mean it's just going to take a lot longer. But getting the revive should be pretty easy. There's only one real requirement, and that's to have below 30% health. So as long as you time it right and you don't make any stupid mistakes, you should be able to arrange for yourself to revive relatively early on into the fight. We managed to do it here. So we managed to keep control of the situation. Other than that, every other unit's going to be fine. Like I said, Raccoon and Jace are perfectly fine. They're realistically a great combo. You keep Raccoon in the first slot, or you place him in front of wherever the super attack is, and you just keep Jace on the, well, adjacent slot, and then you should be more than fine. He'll let you see super attacks. He'll buff up the rest of the rotation because Raccoon's there. He will also raise Raccoon's attack and defense on his super attack, so if you place him first in the rotation, it's really going to help out Raccoon as well. And just overall, really solid units in terms of that. So really great that they have them. Really awesome that they are helping out defensively. Obviously, I wouldn't suggest putting that many more Ginyu Force units in, although Berta is great as well, and he is a viable option that you can use. Him and Gildo and Raccoon and Jace are just probably one too many, or two too many extreme types. Even though Krillin doesn't do a lot of damage, he is super type, so he does manage to dish out some kind of damage. And of course, obviously, he is still rather helpful. But yeah, I think beyond that, that's kind of it when it comes to team building. Everything else is pretty straightforward. You just basically slug it out against Frieza, and you use Nail to do a large portion of damage. You use Nail, or you use the revived Goku, or you use the legendary Super Saiyan Goku. Like whatever you're using, you just use to take out the Frieza. That's really your best option. Unfortunately, there's not too many other things you can do realistically with a super team. There's no other real big time damage dealers barring those three. So that's really what you're trying to build around. You're trying to build around having those three in your team, having the ability to control the fights, having the ability to just kind of keep everything in check. Once you have that resolved, then everything else is more than fine. And you should sail pretty smoothly. It takes a while because you don't have a lot of damage, but you don't necessarily suffer too much. It's just something you're going to need to put an anime on in the background or something like that and just keep yourself entertained. Maybe put on some YouTube videos, maybe listen to some music, maybe do some household chores while you're just clicking away. As long as you keep your rotations quite set, just make sure that you've got Raccoon next to Jace, that you've got Nail sitting there on the one rotation, then you should be more than fine. It won't be that big an issue, but you never know. You know, some people struggle with a lot of these things, some people don't, some people enjoy, you know, the feeling of pain that comes with running the same event over and over and over again. So yeah, I don't know, it's just going to depend on how you feel about it and how your team is going at the time. If you get some crits with the Super Saiyan Strength Goku, that's obviously going to help as well. And he does have the ability to crit once his guard activates, so that is a possibility that he can start to do a large portion of damage. But just be aware that he needs his guard to activate for that to happen. And you also need his guard to activate against the AGL Frieza if you really want to maximize your damage and stay alive, because AGL Frieza will do a lot of damage to Goku, even with an item active. If he hasn't stacked at all, he's going to take a lot of damage, just because he doesn't have a high enough baseline defense if he only transforms right at the end. So you're really going to want to get him to transform earlier on in the fight. That's going to help you out a lot. It's going to let him stack up, and once he's at around about 150-ish K defense, he's okay. I'm not going to say he's perfect, he can still get walloped, but if his guard activates, he'll be more than fine. He'll not take any damage, he'll be good to go, and he'll do a decent whack of damage in return. So yeah, Goku will be fine. It's just getting him there. You just need to make sure that you obviously go through that process, that you keep control of everything, and then from there it should all be fine. Of course, like I said, you want to also make sure that you revive, because reviving is also going to help you, because that means you're going to have a second unit that has a high chance of critting, and that's always going to help, especially with Goku doing a decent wallop of damage. It really helps to have units dish out that kind of damage. So yeah, just full disclaimer, that's pretty much how you're going to go. And you can see here like how quickly in inverted commas, we're taking the event. And that's just literally because we don't have the second damage dealer, we don't have the int damage dealer out just yet. We don't have any of the Gokus transformed, so we're going slowly. It's not something that I can say we're going slowly. We're relying on Nail to essentially kill Frieza, which is great because Nail does like 3 or 4 super attacks that are all crits against Frieza, which is fantastic. But at the same time, doesn't really help us when it's only one unit that can do that. So it's just something that you need to be aware of, need to keep control of. In this physical stage here, it is probably the stage where you're at the most risk, because obviously Krillin and Vegeta exchange unit doesn't have a lot of baseline stats. They haven't got their easy A yet, and when you're running them under a 130, 150, 70 lead, they're gonna have a little bit of lower attack damage and lower defense than they should, which isn't really gonna help them. And they are reliant on evasion for building up that defensive stat. So if they don't evade, they can, as you can see, can take quite a large chunk of damage. Fortunately, that will enable us to transform our Goku, which is obviously very, very good. So we do need Goku to transform because, like I said, we want Goku to start building up stacks. We want him to kind of generate those stacks. You can see there, his defense is below 100k right off the bat, and that's just not great. I don't think there's anything wrong with Goku as a unit. I really like Goku as a unit. I think he's aged a little bit, but I don't think he's aged as badly as people make him out to. But he does need a stack to generate some defense. Stacking to generate defense will really help him out, and especially with Nail here, we'll start having a decent DPS rotation, especially if Goku can activate his guard and activate that additional defense. So yeah, definitely something, well, that additional critting ability, I should say. So yeah, that'll definitely start helping. Obviously though, because he's now strength type, we are going to get some extra damage in here on the Frieza, which is good. Piccolo is starting to build up. Remember, Piccolo gets stronger each turn, which does help him as well. He is taking some damage, but this is okay because we're going to, like I said, get the ability to revive. We're going to get the ability to come out, and then that means that essentially we're going to finally get our third damage dealer, our second most important damage dealer, but our third damage dealer in total. So yeah, really, really solid here. Kind of the correct time as well. We want to try and get that damage dealer at the end of the physical phase, well, for 2 reasons. Obviously, firstly, we don't want even with the damage reduction and everything, we don't really want him to fight a physical type unit. There's no real need. It's just not really going to help us. And then secondly, of course, it just means that we're going to be able to get the revive, save ourselves some items, and then move on. So let's watch the revive. I love it, and we'll come back. So there we go. Obviously we got the revive activated, which is really, really cool. And with that revive active, we've managed to kind of get ourselves that additional damage dealer. It's really going to help us out later on throughout the event. Should speed things up actually overall. It would have sped things up if we got it in the first turn as well, but it's fine. We've now got it here, so that's great. Remember, Goku has a high chance to crit against Planet Namek Saga enemies, which is really quite helpful in this stage. And then obviously we've got Nail, who's dishing out some real good damage as well. Ideally, everything should go smoothly from here. This Frieza, as I've said a couple times, this third form Frieza does feel like the rest stage. He kind of feels like he's not as big a jump up. He doesn't feel as threatening. That being said, he's probably the one that will in future kill me the most, because, yeah, let's be real, it's always the ones you least expect that will sort you out. So we do have a Dokkan attack. Obviously getting it with Raccoon's not the greatest situation, but it should heal up any damage that we take this turn. Raccoon himself does somewhat decent damage to Frieza, actually. I don't know if it's just because the damage reduction type to extreme type it doesn't fully kick in. I don't know if crits just ignore it. Obviously I assume Dokkan attacks ignore it a little bit because a good amount of damage there. But yeah, Frieza throwing a super attack on Raccoon, great. Really not that big an issue for us. And obviously Jace following it up. Jace's defense stands up pretty much the whole way through. He can get clapped a little bit by the AGL full power Frieza at the end, but it's not the end of the world. He survives perfectly fine, especially if you just place him in the right positions, which is quite easy with his super attack seeing ability. Obviously we've got the Goku here now, which is great. Obviously super duper helpful. His defense is really solid. He's got damage reduction of 30%, remember that. And he's also going to really boost his defense on super. We're going to shift things around, just kind of switch Nail to the other rotation, just because that's going to just help us have 2 rotations that deal damage. And Goku and obviously Goku are going to link just a little bit better. I think they share 3 or 4 links, so that's going to help them as well. And you can see Goku doing some really delicious damage there. So yeah, now a pace should pick up a little bit, and things should go by a little bit smoother, a little bit faster. So definitely something good to have him transform, really going to help us out. So yeah, overall everything's going fine. Goku there getting a nice crit, getting his defense stacked up. He's going to start being at the point where we're okay with things. Obviously we're taking 24k here, but that's okay. It's not the end of the world. Having his guard activate would be a lot nicer, but I mean, I can't complain too much. We've got Nail here, just kind of ramping up his attack stat and his defense stat. Nail defensively will be fine the entire way through. He's going to be able to soak super attacks pretty much for double digits from like the second or third turn. Yeah, I mean like 9k, it's really nothing. So yeah, realistically Nail is kind of like a pillar of strength in this challenge. And then of course having the Goku and the Vegeta unit also really helps out. So yeah, overall quite happy with the performance, with just everything in general. And yeah, we're going to manage to clear up third form Frieza, which is obviously going to help us out. And then, you know, we should be more than fine. So like I said, you can see Raccoon doing somewhat decent damage. Obviously it is reduced because he's extreme type. I mean, that high end attack stat with a super unit would, you know, dish out some real damage to Frieza, but that's okay. Really nothing too wild or anything like that. And yeah, I think overall we're doing fine. Getting a lucky additional here with Krillin as well, saving ourselves some damage and just finishing off Frieza. Always a nice little touch there. So yeah, everything's gone to plan so far. We've had a little bit of luck with things like that, those additional attacks and everything. But I wouldn't say we've had extreme luck or anything. I wouldn't say we're riding our luck or anything like that. So yeah, right now I'm very happy with how this team is functioning. Piccolo, a great source of healing as well, which is underrated. Of course, something that I just want to highlight with Piccolo is he will take quite a little bit of damage, especially at the strength phase. But once you get him to the AGL phase, he's quite a decent tank. I mean, he will take damage because he has type advantage. It really helps him out. And this defense is at a high enough point that he's not a liability. So yeah, he will be a little bit worse for wear in this current scenario, but he will be more than fine once you get to the AGL stage. So yeah, as soon as you get Piccolo to that stage, you can actually pretty much just line him back up with Nail if you want, just to maximize the damage, because obviously both of them super types, and then everything does move a little bit better. Goku dishing out some good damage again. You can see having him come into the fold really helped us out. So yeah, honestly really quite happy in terms of this event overall. I do think the Planet Namek Saga mission is probably the hardest one, just because it requires quite specific units. The Super Saiyan one has multiple leads, but has a very large category to pull from, what with Hybrid Saiyans, Pure Saiyans, and all those sort of things. The Legendary Existence one is also quite challenging, but because the lead for the Legendary Existence category is the friend Goku, or you can take a friend Super Saiyan a la Goku, it makes things a lot easier because Goku just does a crazy amount of damage. So that is just one thing, like with Goku doing so much ridiculous damage, especially in this final stage, just being able to take him really does make things like quite substantially easier. So yeah, that is just something that, you know, like makes life a lot easier, is what I'll say. So that's why I think that challenge is probably easier than this Planet Namek Saga one. But I think we'll definitely go Super Saiyan, Legendary Existence, and then Planet Namek Saga being the hardest. With the free-to-play EZAs that will be coming out, hopefully it gets a little bit easier. And I mean, it's always great if they do design those units to benefit greatly in this type of event. That'll also be really awesome. You can see here, obviously trying to get the last couple stacks in with Goku, because that's, you know, gonna help us out quite a bit. All the extra defense that he gets is going to be great. It's going to help him tank, and then hopefully he gets his guard to activate. But you can see he's tanking somewhat decently. He's taking decent damage on normals. Obviously he's got his guard active, which is really good. And then we have Goku here following up with some really nice damage. He hasn't critted yet, but there we go, just critted now. And he won't tank a lot. Yeah, 50k, he doesn't take a lot of damage at all. That damage reduction coming in clutch, and just, yeah, overall really solid. So quite happy with Goku. I think bringing him along is a good option as a second lead. It just slows you down early on because Vegeta is obviously extreme type, but yeah, not really that big an issue. You can see here we've got Nail now on rotation. Like I said, I'm going to keep Piccolo next to him now because obviously, as stated previously, Piccolo is going to be perfectly fine against AGL Frieza, and he's going to beef up Nail's damage, and that's always a good thing. And then we're going to enter into that final stage now. So we do have a fair share of items left, which is all good. Could definitely do no item runs and all that silly stuff that people like. I don't know if people want to see those type of things. I don't really do them on my channel. I could do them on my channel if people really want to, but I don't feel it's necessary. It's like a YouTube thing that people like to do, but yeah, it's just not something I feel is necessary. But we activated Whis, and so we should be fine with Goku's current level of defense. This now means that obviously the Int Goku has 70% damage reduction, which is a fair chunk of damage reduction, so yeah, he won't take any damage. And his crits are starting to come in clutch right now, which is really awesome. So now we're starting to see those crits really rack up. We're starting to dish out a nice fair chunk of additional damage on Frieza, and everything just overall is, yeah, moving at a good pace now. I would say the team definitely reaches its apex here. You've got Goku, who's finally stacked up some defense. He's going to be able to crit because his guard keeps getting activated. Then we've got obviously Nail and Piccolo, who can finally join up together, unless of course they get locked into place, because that does happen, as you can see here. But that's not the end of the world. If Krillin and them get some evasion in, then their defense will be up to a high enough point, and then obviously Nail's going to do a lot of damage. You know, linked with Piccolo obviously has a lot more links active. He's also getting that support, so he should be able to dish out some good damage to Frieza, which will help us out quite a bit, because the more damage he does to Frieza, the better. Having Nail locked into third slot's probably the worst case scenario, just because you're going to lose out on a crap ton of damage, which isn't great. But you can see their big, nice 2 million attack stat. Hopefully Nail picks up and does 3 attacks. If he does 3 or 4 attacks, that's obviously super helpful. Really going to just enable us to get some damage in. Yeah, 3 super attacks are really awesome. Gonna really get some nice big damage in, really chunk Frieza down, and then Piccolo is gonna follow it up with a nice tech-based super as well. So realistically now we're starting to rack in the damage. You can see this phase is going faster than all the others. It's because all our units have obviously hit their apex. They've been stacking and everything for quite a while. Plus additionally, like I've said before, the AGL Freezer does feel like he is mildly weaker defensively than the other freezers. So yeah, just yeah, pretty easy going from this point onwards. We still have items left, so obviously we'll use those to ensure we get the victory. But yeah, really happy with this team build. I think it all worked out perfectly fine. Getting some crits in now because we have the guard activated. You can see how much damage Goku's going to take here with his guard. I think his guard will be activated. But we do have an item active, but his guard is activated, so yeah, he's not going to take too much. Once his guard activates, you're perfectly fine. When it doesn't activate, that's where you can run into some trouble. But yeah, guard activated. We've got obviously Goku there wrapping things up. And yeah, we've managed to basically beat Frieza. So nice team. Takes a while. Slow as hell. But not too bad. Obviously takes a while, but I think this method works pretty nicely because it does use 3 free-to-play units. That's it from me, guys. Let me know in the comments what kind of teams you're using, and as always, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, bye!